the idea for us is to try to help subsidize this whole idea of using recycled waste fiber the way that oil is subsidized, because all oil spills are cleaned up with synthetic booms and mats. So because that's subsidized, and it's cheaper to use oil to clean up oil when the government helps pay for the oil.
This is Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert, and I'm Meredith. I explore the questions people think but don't ask out loud, either because they're taboo or thanks to cultural hypnosis. My mission, and yours if you choose to accept it, is to inspire curiosity by exploring the nuance and paradox of our world. Each episode is different, so bring your ADD and your earbuds and have a look around.
Hey Meredith for Real fans, it's Stephanie
and Marnie
from the Art of Living Well podcast, where we inspire, motivate, and empower you to embark on your journey to find your art of living well.
Check out episode 114, where we talk about all things sleep with our amazing guest, Devin Burke, or another great episode, 121, our health transformation audit with community member Kim, where we guide her to explore ways and find action steps to build self-care into her busy day. You are listening to Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert.
Here's your host, Meredith Edwards.
Hey, Curiositors, it's me, Meredith. I expected this to be a feel-good interview. I didn't expect to learn so much about oil spills. Wait until you hear where most of our oil water pollution comes from. It's not offshore. Another thing that surprised me was how not disempowering the whole concept was. I mean, you hear about a subject like pollution, and you may change your own habits for a while, but I think we'd be lying to ourselves if we said we didn't feel like it didn't make much of a difference. This idea, though, is simple and really exciting because the way my guest explains it, you could really see how it could change everything. So thank you for showing up today, and extra thank you if you're a returning curiositor. We are broadening our worldview one guest at a time. And if you're new here, welcome. Every Monday is a new 30-minute conversation with a paradoxical person or topic. My hope is to disrupt the algorithm with curiosity and varied perspective. So there's no specific order to listen to the episodes. And at the end of each one, I offer a next episode suggestion of, if you liked that, you might like this sort of thing. So have a look around and hit play on whatever grabs your attention. All right, enjoy the show. Have you ever watched an oil spill disaster play out on the news and just felt helpless? You thought, maybe I could join my local Surfrider chapter or buy a Prius. But what if the answer was on your head, as in your hair? It turns out each head of hair can hold 3 to 9 times its weight in oil. And that's exactly the solution my next guest has been innovating with since 1998. She's the president and co-founder of Matter of Trust, an environmental public charity turning discarded hair into oil cleanup solutions. Today, she's going to share how the idea came about, how it works, and how we can help. Green innovator, optimistic eco-doer, Lisa Gauthier. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much.
I'm so glad that you're here. I feel like the idea of using hair for oil cleanup is one of those oh, yeah, that's brilliant. Why didn't we think of that sooner kind of things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we talk to kids, we're always like, you shampoo because hair collects oil, and they get it, right away.
Right away. So how did Matter of Trust, how'd the idea come about?
So Matter of Trust is an organization that does a lot of things, but by far, this project is the most famous and the most fun, really, just because working with hairstylists and pet groomers is just a blast. Everybody's so positive and happy, and just making people and pets beautiful, so they're all happy and wonderful. But honestly, the thing is that we heard about this idea in 1999 because a hairstylist in Alabama named Phil McCrory had come up with the idea of using hair to soak up oil spills after he was shampooing a really oily head of hair. And at the same time, on a big TV in his salon, they were showing all these otters covered in oil on CNN because there was the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Prince William Sound, Alaska. And that was in the late 1980s, I mean, 1989. And he actually was cutting hair of people from NASA. And so he was talking to them about his idea, and they did a bunch of experiments, and they're like, you're right, hair does soak up a lot of oil. And so he had actually gotten some press about that way back then, and I'd heard about it. And I just assumed that every great idea made it big. And so when there were other oil spills, I assumed everybody was using hair for them, but turns out not.
So how did that idea in Alabama become part of Matter of Trust and now on the bigger, I don't know if is it global? Is it a global scale?
It is now. Yeah. Thanks to so many hair salons all over the world. So there was an oil spill in the Galapagos Islands, and they were using chemical dispersants. And the people there were very worried about it. We were actually working with them on a different project, and we heard about this. And I'm like, why aren't you using the hair mats? And they're like, what hair mats? So I called every stylist in Huntsville, Alabama, till I found Phil. And he's like, I've never been able to make a business out of this. And my garage is full of hair. And I was like, oh, our charity would love to work with you on this. And we partnered. And from then on, we were partners, and it was just fantastic. And we, it was after that, we just really started to collect all of the hair ourselves, and we were making mats, and got partners around the world who also could felt and collect hair, et cetera.
That's incredible. So how does it work? Where do the donations come from? Is it mostly hair salons or private donors?
Well, during COVID, we exploded in private donors. And it was the first time ever that hair salons had this experience where, they were shut down like that, because usually, it's not something that could be outsourced. Usually it's recession proof. You always can go to a hair salon. So they were just in shock that their business changed. We started to get all kinds of ponytails, and then people also started to brush their own dogs, so we got a lot of fur. There's around 900,000 licensed hairstylists in the U.S. and about 400,000 pet groomers, but then of course there's 320 million people, and most of them have hair, so yeah.
Wow. Okay, so how is it? All textures of hair then?
Yeah, we can take whether it's been chemically straightened or permed or colored, dyed with henna, or whatever the chemical treatment is. We've been doing tests on that to see if there's any leaching. There's no problem with that. Of course, what we call virgin hair is totally great. It's the nooks and crannies on the hair, so the less that it's chemically stripped, the better. But really, it's also just, the long fiber. The oil coats the outside of the fiber. It's just a lot of surface area. So yeah, all of that can come to us. We accept everything that's over 1 inch long. And if it's over 4 inches long, we say, please send that separately to us if you could, because we use it for a separate part of the mat. And then anything that's under 1 inch can go into your garden or flower pots. That's really, really a good source of slow nitrogen release in soil.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay, so how does it go from a pile of hair into a mat or a boom to absorb oil?
So we get the packages. People just mail it to us very generously. And when you cut off your hair, we ask you to post it on our website called thehumsum.org for Humanity Adding Solutions. And then from there, we say which of our felters has the most space and the most need at that moment. And then it stays there for a month, because we don't want to get lice or fleas or ringworm. And we've learned this lesson the hard way. So we hold everything for at least a month, unless it's a big emergency. And then we take it, and the long hair gets put into a machine called a needle punch in sort of a plaid pattern, and it makes these outer layers, what we call scrims. And then the short hair, fur and fleece is sandwiched in between those, and they go through the needle punch machine again, so that the final mat is about 60 centimeters by 60 centimeters by 2 centimeters, which is basically 2 feet by 2 feet by 1 inch.
And then after it's made, are there regular companies that are purchasing these over and over again, or is it like, on standby until there's an oil emergency? How does it get to where it's actually used as an oil absorption tool?
So, yes, we have contracts with places that, and we're setting up more and more of them all the time to try to use local hair for local spills with different municipalities. And also we work very closely with the Air Force in the United States that uses them for contaminated water reservoirs and other uses. And so those are like nice steady things, because the idea for us is to try to help subsidize this whole idea of using recycled waste fiber the way that oil is subsidized, because all oil spills are cleaned up with synthetic booms and mats. So because that's subsidized, and it's cheaper to use oil to clean up oil when the government helps pay for the oil. So we're like, okay, we're a little charity, but we'll do what we can. So we'll just go ahead and help subsidize used, recycled fibers. And so basically what happens is that, you have all these little cottage industries, and they're willing to felt all these fibers and store them and everything. And so we'll get them the machines, but we want them to be able to sell the mats to make some income for their time and their work. But most of the oil that gets into our waterways is through storm drains. 50% of it is just rain and fog mixing with the oil on the streets. And only 5% comes from major oil spills. It's, those get more press, but they're really very small percentage of the overall contaminant. So, if there's a big major oil spill, everybody wants to help, and the hair can go straight to that, either in mats or in booms that we make on site, et cetera. But in general, everything we're doing is for, what we call just regular spillage all the time, and just trying to keep the most oil out of the waterways as possible.
That is such a shocking fact that most of the, half basically of the oil that ends up in our waterways is just from rainwater pushing the oil on the street into the waterways. So how do your mats, where are they positioned in order to help with that? Are they like near the storm drains, or?
Yeah, there's a wonderful company in Texas called Inlet Guard. And there's many places like that that'll make things that are like catchment cages that go inside of storm drains to get leaves and litter. And so basically, what you want to do is line those things with a hair mat, so that when the rain comes in, most of it, most of the water will touch the hair mat, but then go off through this cage, because it's got big holes in it to make sure that you don't get big puddles or pooling or anything. But that way the oil will smash down onto the hair will grab it. And then the water goes on through the storm drain. And it also actually helps collect the litter as well. If they stay out too long, like more than 2 years or something like that, it turns out that acorns will also grab hold, and they'll start to grow. So you do have to check them. We do check them.
So then you have storm drain trees. Well, that's exciting. So how often do you have to change the, I guess really they could be called filters, the hair filters, when they're in a storm drain?
So it depends on how much saturation you have. If you're in an industrial area and there's an awful lot of oil, then maybe, 2 or 3 times a year. If you're in a dry area and it's residential and there's not that much oil, we have seen them stay out there for 2 years. Like, they're very sturdy mats. We make them, they're like doormats almost.
And how do you dispose of them once they're saturated?
So the interesting thing about that, and we get that question a lot, is that it's actually, we'd have to sue to get them back from an oil spill, because that's usually a legal situation and it's evidence. And for the cities all have their own disposal for hazardous materials. So, and in the United States, usually things are either landfilled in hazmat lined landfills, or they're incinerated for energy. We're actually more pro very clean incineration. We're starting to do a lot of research on clean incineration. Vienna, Austria has, one of the cleanest incinerators in the world, right in the heart of its city. Japan has done a lot of work on incineration. And we figure by the time you're done, the hair has been on your head, then it's, created jobs, in hair cutting and making mats, and then it's cleaned up water. And then, it can go as energy. That's a lot of use for one fiber. But we know that there's particulate matter in incineration, and there's a lot of controversy around that.
Hey, Curiositors, just a quick pause to show gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals. If trash TV leaves you feeling drained and you want to support creators like yours truly, check out Stream Moco. You can search shows by your mood and even, watch my show, The Curious Introvert. For every $3.99 subscription, they give away $1 for good and support their creators, like your girl. Find my affiliate link in the episode description or the bio link in my Instagram account. Stream Moco, the streaming network that gives a damn. If you've got backyard barbecue plans for 2022, but mosquitoes are not invited, I recommend Insect. I've been using their pest control service for several years now. They have a certified mosquito identification specialist on staff, and pollinator care is always top of mind. If you live in the Florida Panhandle or the Gulf Coast of Alabama, give them a call, ensec.net. The UWF Historic Trust. We shoot the show at the Pensacola Museum of History. It not only houses exhibits of lesser-known Pensacola history, it's an event space too. So if you need a unique space in downtown Pensacola for a fundraiser, networking event, or a corporate party, take a look at historicpensacola.org. And if you want to tour one of the 12 museums, get your tickets in person so you can show the agent one of my emails and get $2 off an adult ticket. Get emails by texting REAL to 66866. Now back to the show. Right. Wow, that's incredible, though, to think about all those uses just from hair. And then, as you pointed out, jobs also for people that are creating the mats. Is the process to make the mats, is that a patented process or?
So actually Phil McCrory had patented it. And then in 2013, we all discussed it and we were saying, look, it's everybody's hair. And so he agreed with us that it's now open to the world. And so that we did not renew the patents. And we just feel that this is really one of those things that everybody in the world should be able to, just share and love and protect environments with.
I agree. That's very cool. I'm so excited about this because, as you know, I'm in Pensacola, Florida, and we are an ocean-loving town. And the Deep Horizon oil spill, that was really impactful for our community. And it was just so much oil in that 3 months. And I read that your organization received so many donations, which is so heartwarming. I think I read 750,000 pounds of hair. I can't even imagine that much hair, but enough to make a real impact on the cleanup situation. And just like the spill in the Galapagos that you just mentioned, the scientists, assigned to that solution decided that the hair booms would have sunk to the bottom, but then they used dispersants, which also sunk to the bottom. So since then, that's been over 10 years. Have you had the opportunity to use hair booms instead of oil dispersants in any other oil spills?
So first of all, I just want to do a big shout out to Yente Seaman, who is one of our huge heroes in Florida during the BP Horizon. That was in 2010. So yeah, I can't believe it's already been 12 years. Actually, it was around Earth Day. It was like right around now that it all happened. And also Amanda Bacon from Alabama and Barbara Johnson. There were just so many heroes out there. They would get, hundreds and thousands of volunteers at different times, thanks to the interfaith community and everything. They had barbecues and boom making things. They started to call them boombacues on the beach.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so cool.
And it was just amazing. Just really I just fell in love with the South. So yeah. And everybody, fishermen and, just everybody was trying to help. Everybody really understood that this oil was sinking and just going to hit all the, crabs and everything down there. And everybody was very concerned about it. So, we did get in. So the only time we counted was over a 4-day period where we know that we got about 750,000 pounds in one 4-day period, but we got a lot more than that total. And people were so generous with warehouses, just up and down from Florida Keys to Texas. So just a really, you can just tell how much people care about the environment down there. It was huge outpouring. And really we got hair from every zip code in North America and 30 other countries at one point when we were counting. And we couldn't always count because there was just too much coming in and we were too busy, booming and everything. But yeah, so yes, we have been able to work with other spills and talking to different people around the world as well that are using local hair for spills like in Mauritius and, other places in Asia, especially, and even in Europe, in France, off the coast of France and places. But again, so absolutely, if it's an emergency and if there's nobody taking care of the spill, like happens in South America or around the Amazon with oil pipeline leaks, et cetera, I think it makes the most sense to get in there. But if there is a hazmat team, we mostly now work with people trying to say, be very careful. This stuff is carcinogenic. If you're in the water and they've already used dispersants, those things are endocrine disruptors. So they're not only will they affect you and your health, but also your children's health. So it really, we think makes sense to let the people in the hazmat suits that are paid to do this and are trained to do this out in the oil, when they're there. And we're all about safety first now. And you can roll up your sleeves and start making mats and booms, with hair, which is non-toxic, and will help. And you're still making a big difference for petrochemicals in the waterways, but you're not in the middle of the oil.
So you have been able to convince oil cleanup contractors to use your hair booms instead of the dispersants?
Well, we actually don't work with oil companies that much. We've talked to them. But honestly, so here's the interesting thing is that, so there's so many places that spill oil. So you have mechanics shops, we do work with cities, of course, as I said, because they see a lot of oil. They also have the used motor oil collection sites that need, mats. And we're working with the Air Force, as I said, which is our biggest project. But oil companies themselves, we have not had a lot of success with them. And I think that's because they, it's a revenue cycle for them. They use oil to make oil spill cleanup products. So,
right, because the booms were polypropylene?
Yes.
Which
exactly.
is an oil derivative. So they kind of, I don't know. I mean, they probably still come out in the negative, but it, like you said, they sort of benefit from using their own products. But the oil dispersant, that's the one that I'm that for our community is the most worrisome, because especially surfers, we were all really concerned. So is the dispersant from the oil company, or is that a separate contractor that the oil companies use?
Well, BP had its own Corexit. And so the interesting thing about that is that it was banned in the UK. So the fact that they used it here was pretty shocking. And they actually were told that they would be fined by the EPA. And they said, you know what, we'll go ahead and pay the fines. We think it'll be better than the lawsuits if we don't use it.
But they had your hair though. If they were going to sink it all, I mean, I know you don't like to be all in this stuff, so forgive me. But why didn't they just use the hair if they were going to sink the oil anyway?
Excuse me. Well, so here's the wonderful thing about big companies is that there were people inside BP that wanted to use the hair. There were a lot of amazing people there. And the people that were in charge of boom acquisition did reach out to us and say, we saw you on Rachel Maddow and we think what you're doing is amazing. And so, let's get as much fiber as you can. and we'll start booming all of the canals in Louisiana because they're very worried about, just how many canals there were and the oil coming in, maybe all the way up to New Orleans. And so, so we did, because it was fleecing season and there were buffalo herds and all the alpaca herds and they were all shedding all of their fleeces, and we were getting truckloads. And then somebody else in BP at their public relations department said, BP will not use hair. And I'm like, what? Well, that should be the opposite. It should be the boom acquisition people that are like, we haven't tested this yet. We don't know. And it should be the public relations people going, but this is such great public relations because now everybody's part of the solution. And oh my gosh, what a mess. But they were dealing with a lot of lawsuits, and so they were panicking, and they weren't acting particularly great. And we were also, all of us, we were not getting much sleep either. So we could understand that they were not getting any sleep. And we're not reacting great. But yeah, it's the reason that synthetic booms and mats, are less expensive than using something like, cotton or wool or hair or hay or anything like that is purely because it's subsidized.
Because it's subsidized. Oh, that's so messy and really infuriating. But I'm glad that there's companies like you, and I'm glad that the more people that can know about this, that it's an option, maybe that would provide more pressure for others to force these companies into doing something like that. So if you could gain another big client, so the Air Force you mentioned, that's one of your top, but if you could gain another big client that would make a huge impact on oil cleanup, who's your dream client? Who do you wish was on board with your cause?
Oh, we want municipalities, as many municipalities as we can get. That, lots of times suburbs have those long, sort of newer storm drains. The old cities have round ones, and they usually use a gravel and what's called a witch's hat, something like a cone that goes inside. And so it's a very different system. But any municipalities that want to use inlet guards, that's ideal for us, because they're just sort of long rectangular things that are shaped, and they put these things in there, and then we can just line them with hair mats, and it gets the most bang for our buck. It gets the most oil off the streets and out of the waterways. So that would be great. And of course, mechanics shops and, places like that. Our goal is to have 300 felters in the world. Right now, we're at 10% of that already. We have over 30. And so our goal is to use local hair for local spills. We're a public charity, so we're not a company, but all of our felting partners, I shouldn't say that. There are some actually animal rescue felting partners that have their own fleece and husky fur and all of those good things. They're also nonprofits, but most of our partners are, just people working out of their homes or out of studios and places like that, making these mats. And we want all of that to go to local spills.
And if somebody's listening to this or watching it and thinks, wow, I want to be a part of that. I want to, be a hair felter, or I want to donate hair, or I am the owner of a salon chain and I want to make sure that I'm contributing to this amazing cause. Where do they get started? What's like their, the point where they can start that process?
Yeah. matteroftrust.org. So, and if you go there, you'll see a little button on the top of the homepage that says, you want to donate hair? Which I'm sure everybody who goes there for something else must be like,
You're like, what?
So go to matteroftrust.org, and it'll set you off on the path to just have some information about if you want to set up a felting station. We send you a machine, and we have all kinds of information for you for that. And then if you want to donate hair, just one time or regularly, it'll have all the information about that, because we've set up a little environmental social media platform where we're having everybody post all of their hair, fur, and fleece. And then that way we can have a record of what's coming in from what zip code all over the world, so that we can show governments just how much people want to do this and just how much waste fiber is out there, and that it's all going into the waste stream unless we all start a global recycling system on it. So.
That's so smart to use a social media platform as like evidence for data collection. I love that. That's brilliant. Or do you have any other social platforms that people can follow you before we wrap up?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're on, Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. And really, we would love people to help us with thehumsum.org. If you guys want to sign up with that, and we're trying to make a social media platform that's just about the environment and solutions. No politics, no ranting, no bullying. Just we have it all moderated by high school and college students and people that are, they found their inner hall monitor and they're just really helping us keep it to be a really great and practical place to really stop pollution. That's our big thing. People talk about saving the world. I think the world's going to be fine. It's just humanity and the life on the planet right now that we're concerned about. And really nobody likes pollution. Everybody is against pollution. So we know we're all on the same plane for that. And that's really what the website's about.
I love it. Well, I signed up. I'm on there. So you got one more. That's brilliant. Thank you so much for doing this and for being such a champion of change. And thank you for sharing your story. This was fantastic.
Thank you very much. This was great. This is one of the most professional podcasts I've ever been on. And I just have to say you are delightful. And I love what you're doing. This is fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for listening. If you were inspired by this episode, let's pull some resources. Ask your hairstylist to save hair clippings at your next haircut. Talk to your pet groomer about doing the same. Maybe you work for a municipality or an oil company. Use your connections to create some common sense solutions. And if you liked this episode, you'll also like the one I did with a photographer who turned her fear of sharks into an obsession with them. That's way back in episode 12. Stay tuned next week when I talk with an author and speaker about how to turn small talk into real talk. Talk to you then.